Hey everybody, Joseph Rothschild here, aka Mono Bluetron, back again with another episode of 10-Minute Testing. It's the morning after the weekend of the YGO Pro update, and you know what that means, Neos time. Truthfully, playing this deck is just my tribute as thanks to the YGO Gods for not making Needlefiber the Tin promo, and hopefully this pile will stave off 6 more weeks of Extra Link winter. So with that, I present to you, Merchant Neos. So here's the... Oh, man. I mean, what do you even say about this? When I'm judged at the gates of heaven, I can only hope that St. Peter doesn't find my YouTube channel. And if he does, I will proudly respond, I did what I had to. As always, I'll give you a little bit of background about the archetype, a little bit of a discussion about what I hope the deck can do, and as always, the card by card. So firstly, for those of you that don't know, Neospatian has gotta be in the running for the worst archetype ever. That's why when I heard they were getting new support, I got extremely excited. The old Neos cards were a series of monsters that, if they were on the field at the same time as elemental hero Neos, could contact fuse into one of several sweet extra deck mons, a hearty one of which was playable. And they each returned the extra deck at the end of the turn they were special summoned. Slowly, they began printing 3 material Neos fusions as well, which contacted 2 Neospatians with elemental hero Neos for enormous, game-endingly strong effects. Unfortunately, it's extremely difficult to assemble a 7-star vanilla and 2 other monsters with 0 protection, so they eventually printed cards like Miracle Contact and Nex, which allowed monsters to make it on board without contact fusing. When your best archetypal cards are specifically designed to circumvent what makes your archetype unique, you've got a problem. So now that we've established that Neospatians are impossible to get on board and the only way to compete is to find the unsearchable Miracle Contact, maybe you've caught on to why we're playing this shell. Our game plan is to get Magical Merchant set, get its effect off, adding a copy of Miracle Contact to our hand, then fusing the nonsense in the graveyard to a Nebula NEOS. When summoned, this card draws you cards equal to the number of cards your opponent controls, and negates a card on the field. When it leaves the field at the end of the turn, it banishes everything else down with it, face down. Hopefully, we're able to use our inordinate amount of graveyard setup to facilitate a Blackluster Soldier and push for damage, maybe a couple of Fairy Tale Snow as well. Because we're effectively a second deck, sans its most important piece, we're able to play literally every relevant hand trap under the sun, as well as some irrelevant ones too. Hopefully we can stave off the hordes of monster poppers for long enough to flip this sucker up, and then OTK our opponent once we do so. So with that, let's get into the card by card. First, we've got 2 Elemental Hero Neos, 2 Grand Mole, and 2 Panther. We don't want to play too many of these, drawing them would be a catastrophe. Next are finishers, 3 Blackluster Soldier Envoy at the beginning, and 2 Fairy Tale Snow. If we ever bin material for 3 Fairy Tale Snow, I will eat my hat. After that is 3 Prisma, which is a brown Foolish Burial, then the Sand Witches, 2 Witch, and 3 Sangan. We've also got a small TGU package of Tour Guide, the Gans, and Skarm. For hand traps, we've got 3 Ash, 3 Ogre, 3 Droll and Lockbird, 3 Veiler, 3 Soravius, which might be the best one. Bringing up the rear are 3 Merchant and the Miracle Contact. For the extra deck, we've got Nebula NEOS, Dark NEOS, Grand NEOS, Beatrice, technically we can make her, but there's no way we do, Tornado Dragon, Baguska, Gagaga Samurai, Abyss Dweller, Dante, Nightmares Unicorn, Phoenix, and Cerberus, We to get the Sangan/TGU off of the field, Clara and Rushka to get the Witches and Solo Gans off the field, and Lanfolinkus for all of your Linkus needs. So with that, let's jump into the games. Our first match is up against Relinquished Karibo. It doesn't sound particularly impressive, but like my mother told me when I told her I was pursuing a career in Yu-Gi-Oh! YouTubing, you've got to be serious about your own options. We're going first, which is pretty bad with this hand. We're going to go ahead and set this Sangan because we have the Soravius in hand. We want to be able to protect it as much as possible. Our opponent's going to pre-prep for a Ritual and a Relinquished. They'll go ahead and use the effect of Relinquished. If we Ghost Ogre in response, the Sangan goes to the graveyard. So we'll do that, and they'll pass it back to us. Now, any competent deck would OTK from this position, but we're just going to set a Magical Merchant and hope for the best. Our opponent's going to normal summon a Kinkabio to get back this copy of Relinquished, use its effect, to which we will chain Soravius. Then they will Relinquished Fusion into a Millenniumize. But of course, Millenniumize can't do anything until an effect is activated, and this effect is going to activate during the damage step. So we're milling cards. We need to see 1 Panther, 1 Neos, and 1 Grand Mole, and the astute among you will recognize we have not yet seen a Grand Mole. Need a Grand Mole. Grand Mole. Gotta get... Yes, there it is. Okay, so now we just need the Miracle Contact. We'll go ahead and bin like 20 cards, and they'll pass it back to us as well. The first thing we're going to do is normal summon this copy of Fairy Tale Snow, so we can prevent that Millennium Eyes from activating any other time during this turn. They'll go ahead and snag that sucker, then we will activate Miracle Contact, getting out Nebula NEOS, negating the effect of Millennium Eyes, then special summoning a Blackluster Soldier, attacking for 3,000, 3,000 again, and dealing the killing blow with Nebula NEOS himself. So it's time for game 2, and we're playing against Crawler. That is really bad news for us. Crawler is a flip deck, which means they may be familiar with flip monsters like Magical Merchant. We farm a lot of wins off of people who don't read the cards, stop listening after the word flip, and just assume whatever we've added is terrible. Our opponent's going to go first. They will perform the Crawler Open, setting 3 and passing. We draw into a copy of Sangan. Excellent. We'll go ahead and set one of those, and our opponent flips a Scapegoat. Great. Okay, well, maybe we can beat 4 link material. The first thing they're going to do is link into a Mrs. Radiant, and suddenly they have a threat insofar as a Synaptus on their side of the board. They're going to attack, flip up the Sangan. We'll go ahead and get the Merchant now. We'll take 19 and 26 before they pass it back to us. Things aren't looking great. We do have a Merchant, and we have a couple of hand traps as well. Maybe that'll be enough. Nothing on board really kills it yet. The first thing our opponent's going to do is activate the Survivors they drew, and it's just 3 foolish burials. My god. Unfortunately, they find a Spine. We'll go ahead and draw and Lockbird. They'll flip up Spine with the World Legacy Pawns. Will effect failure it, but with all this material on their side of the board, they can easily go into Borreload, take my card before it flips, and get in for 600 points of damage. They'll then flip up Magical Merchant, immediately find a Survivors. Not so good when you don't build your deck around it, huh? Now we're going to show you why Grand Mole was at 1 for so long. What an incredibly powerful effect. He'll take 500 points off the attack, but it doesn't matter because both him and Borreload are going back to the hand. But aside from actually drawing Miracle Contact Fusion, I don't know how we're going to win this game. Our opponent goes into Quailark, an actually good crawler, and we have exactly 1 draw step to find an answer. And we don't find it. Curry Bandit. This must be an old version of the deck. We'll go for Grand Mole's effect on Quailark, but of course Quailark triggers if it's returned from the field to the extra deck, so we'll concede. Alright, so it's time for game 3, and you know what that means, a best of 3 versus meta. Our opponent's on True Draco. Again. God, I need some new friends. Thankfully, we've drawn some cards that are pretty classically good against True Draco. Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit is quite good against Dragonic Diagram, and Droll and Lockbird is good against any deck that draws 15 cards a turn. We're also going first, so we can set this copy of Magical Merchant and hope for the best. Our opponent draws into another spell. They'll go ahead and fire off this copy of Terraforming for a Diagram. We will chain Droll and Lockbird, and that's the end of the turn. Now, we can reveal our Magical Merchant and start milling. Okay, we need a Panther and we need a Mole. Panther and a Mole. Panther. Okay, there's the Panther. We need a Mole. Need a Mole. There it is. And there's Miracle Contact. Just enough. We'll go ahead and fire that sucker off for Nebula NEOS. Now, this is going to banish too many of our cards, so we'll probably just banish it off of the snow that's in graveyard so that we can push for a little bit more damage. Unfortunately, not game-ending, but will prevent our entire board from going face down. We'll end on an Abyss Dweller. Because we have the Ghost Ogre in hand, I'm not particularly scared of Dragonic Diagram that I know he has. We'll go ahead and fire off this Ghost Ogre in response to the Dragonic Diagram, but here's the second one. Okay, well, Abyss Dweller will prevent any traps from popping. They find a Rivalry of Warlords. Sheesh. They'll go ahead and draw off a True Draco Heritage, then tribute over for Dynamite Knuckle. They'll then tribute over a Disciples of the True Draco Phoenix for a Majesty Maiden, attack over our existing board, and I have no idea how we're going to do 1100 points of damage. They'll set 1 card in Card of Demise and Pot of Desires. Maybe we're on the Deckham plan. They'll go ahead and discard it in a mono and pass it back to us. Well, we can set this copy of Witch of the Black Forest. We don't have any spells left, so this Merchant is basically dead. They pot again, and wait, we can do this. They're diagramming for the last card in their deck. We can totally do this. They get over our Witch. We add TGU. We're going to take 2700. Then when this attack happens, we can banish for Snow, set the other one face down. Oh. Well, okay. Looks like we've lost. All right, so it's time for game 2, and oh. Okay, I am noticing a problem almost immediately here. Now, not a lot can negate Sangan and Magical Merchant, because when they're destroyed, their effects activate during the damage step, but if no effects can activate, we may have a bit of a problem. We get to go first once again, because of course we lost. We'll set this copy of Sangan, and with 2 Seravius in my hand, I'm feeling pretty good until I see a Mono Iwato. Our opponent's going to go into a Dragonic Diagram, destroy our monster with their trap effect, then activate True Draco Heritage to draw some cards, tribute for a Ignis Heat, and start attacking. They have a Card of Demise in the hand, but thankfully preserve my sanity by not using it. Amano's going to return to the hand at the end of the turn. We draw into a Ghost Ogre and Snow Rabbit. Not particularly good. Against a card that negates all monster effects. They're going to use Dragonic Diagram to destroy the other trap, destroy our remaining monster, Heritage to draw, Heritage to tribute, and this is the end of the game. We take 1900 and lethal damage. So we're back with the deck, and imagine my shock. I, for one, am flabbergasted that Konami would release such a non-competitive card. I mean, I can't believe they didn't take advantage of the extremely rich and powerful pool of Neospace. I can't keep this up. This is probably a good enough time as any to talk about casual markets. Now, anyone who's blasting this card because it doesn't do enough is kind of missing the point. And I'm guilty of this myself as well, pretty often. Not every card has to be everything for every person. Sometimes an ancient archetype with literally no way to compete at all getting thrown a semi-competent bone like Nebula NEOS isn't gonna kill ya. And think how happy it makes casual players who grew up with a steady stream of GX delivered into their veins through an IV. Making some completely awful card like this semi-playable is also a hell of a challenge for deck builders, and I can't think of a better outcome from that process than a deck like this one. A completely ludicrous deck that does something completely degenerate and truthfully is nowhere near oppressive. I mean, I had more fun squirming in my seat on stream praying that we milled enough Neospacians to fire off the contact than I have navigating competitive game states in months. And isn't that what Yu-Gi-Oh's about? Fun. So that's that. It's not going to be taking down regionals anytime soon, but sometimes you just gotta fill up the jank tank. If you want to see me play the decks I make on this show on stream, I'm on twitch.tv/monobluetron every weekend, and if you have an idea for a certain deck or archetype you'd like me to take a look at on a future episode of this show, let me know in the comment section below and I'll do my best. Otherwise, I'll see you next time.